Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our webinar presentation with John Carter from Simpler Trading and Ophir Gottlieb from Capital Market Laboratories, where they are going to talk about how AI can help you find your trades in real time. Some quick housekeeping to go over. You may see some interactive features like polls and offers popping up during the webinar. Also on the right-hand side, you'll see a live Q&A tab where you can ask questions that will go to our moderator team, as well as Simpler Trading's Senior Managing Director of Options Trading, Henry Gamble, as well as Ophir at the end of the presentation. If you'd like to maximize your screen real estate, you can minimize the chat section via the down arrow just above the chat, and you can also maximize the video by hovering over the video and clicking Enter Full Screen. And now to start us off this evening, I present to you John Carter.
Hey everybody, this is John, and welcome to tonight's webinar. So this is a very, very special webinar because we have Ophir with us. And if you've never met Ophir, you are in for a treat. We first came in contact, it was a while ago, a long time ago, many, many years ago. Ophir had put together the software that would help us find the best option strategies to do specifically for earnings. Okay, so that was obviously really cool because sometimes it's like, and it wasn't just earnings like in general, it was for a specific stock. And it's like, oh, for Microsoft, by the way, if you sell a straddle 7 days before and, take it off 2 days before, it tends to work, 87% of the time, and here's your average win and here's your average gain. Stuff like that. Like, I was just blown away. And as I got to know Ophir, it's like, time on the floor, incredibly knowledgeable about options, and so that's kind of how we started working together, and it's been fantastic. So tonight, though, the other thing that Ophir does is he's got a very, very smart team of technologists that can help him take his kind of not only options knowledge, but also market knowledge and put it into the software that he has created, and it just kind of continues to add more and more things to it. So what is it? What he's going to be talking about? So one of the things, and this is something that I found out, over time, because you don't know it initially, but as you guys know, like I'm a huge fan of the squeeze, like daily squeeze, 30-minute squeeze, weekly squeeze. And I would find that some of these would work amazing, and then there'd be some that just wouldn't work. And of course, that's normal. There's nothing's going to have a 100% success rate. But in anything that we do, we always want to try to find the best ways to continue to kind of maximize the odds in our favor, right? So what I did notice, though, is that sometimes when I'd go back and look at it and say, wow, this squeeze was setting up with like a cup and handle pattern, or this squeeze had also kind of lined up with a double bottom. And maybe the ones that didn't work were like, oh, there was a squeeze, but there was a head and shoulders topping pattern that I just wasn't looking for. I wasn't paying attention to it. And I find with patterns that unless you're actually specifically looking for patterns, unless they're like so blatantly obvious to you, they just slap you across the face, you don't see them. This kind of like it's like, at least in my experience, it's kind of like an afterthought. It's like, oh yeah, that was a flag or whatever. So what Ophir has done is that he, with the software that he's created and added to, he's now got something called Pattern Finder. And what's great about this, and what I love about things like this, is that you can, and I've seen, I've seen like Thinkorswim and some other places, other software, they've tried to do stuff like this. And frankly, I wasn't that impressed. It's like sometimes what they would refer to, as a cup and handle, looked like, a wild hog that had been shot 3 times, in the hips. So it was questionable at best. But what I found is that with Ophir's software, he's got this pattern finder. So instead of, if there's a stock that you like or something like that, or you want to look for them, it's just something that can just lay it all out right in front of you. So anyway, without further ado, I want to turn this over to Ophir, and Ophir is going to spend the next hour or so walking you through the software. And then he's famous for like staying around forever and answering questions. So if anybody wants to stick around till midnight, Ophir's your guy. All right, Ophir, thanks for coming on, and let's get started. I'll be hanging out.
Hello, everyone. I think we all know John's wild boar shot 3 times pattern. That's a crucial pattern to know. Thank you, John, for the introduction, as always. It's been a pleasure to know you now for several years. And thanks to all of you who joined. I hope I make your Tuesday evening, Tuesday night, depending on what part of the country or the world you're in. I hope I make it valuable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very short slideshow, like 4 minutes. I'm a big believer in tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. Then I'm going to bring out the software. Right. So for now, I'm going to turn off my camera. Obviously, I'm not going anywhere, but I've found that if the camera's on, it can take up a bit too much real estate. And when we start getting into the application and the platform, I think you guys are going to kind of be leaning in a little bit to see what's going on. So I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to share my screen, which will start as a PowerPoint, but don't worry, I'm not here to bore you with a PowerPoint. I will make it full screen. All right, I do have to start with disclaimers, and normally, I mean, they always matter, but normally they're maybe less important. This time they actually are pretty important because although this demonstration will start slowly, for those that know me, it's going to start going pretty quickly. And that means I'm actually going to talk about stocks and prices and direction and profit zones and loss zones. And it's important for you to know, this is not a solicitation to buy or sell any security ever. And if any part during the presentation, it sounds like that's what I'm doing, it's not. It's me not communicating well. Okay? This simply is not advice. The results here are provided for general information purposes as a convenience to you, the viewers, and the materials are not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person, firm, or corporation. Okay. So this is a very short slideshow before we get into it. First, our agenda, which will be what we'll cover. I'll cover it, and then Q&A. Okay, that was the agenda slide. So what will we cover? I want to talk about what a stock chart is really. Okay, and yes, it is a representation, a time series, a representation of a price of an asset over time. But that's not really what it is if you start taking into account that it's created not by nature, so it's different than, let's say, a weather pattern. Let's say if you just took 3 years of weather in Austin, Texas, right? That's not the same, right? Stock chart's a little bit different because they have humans interacting in it, which are causing it to happen. That's just simply called buying and selling. Right? So what does that mean? But I don't want to tell you what a stock chart is if it doesn't matter. So the next thing I'm going to do is say why what a stock chart is actually matters. And I just want to be very clear that these are two very different things, a what and a why. I could tell you what what Ito isometry is, right? I could tell you what Ito isometry is. It's taking a geometric integral in the expectation, turning it into Newtonian calculus, and at the end you'd say, and why? And why did you tell me that? I would never tell you a what if there wasn't a why, and this webinar is going to be a what and a why. Okay. And very specifically, I guarantee you will walk away with a trading plan for every stock and every trade you ever do again. Now, keep in mind what I'm saying. It's a trading plan. It doesn't have to be the trading plan you always use, right? It doesn't have to be it's the only trading plan. No, who would say such a thing? But I promise you that if you don't have a trading plan and you only use this one, you will always have a systematic approach to trading. I am not advocating to only use this, but I am promising you that you could only use this. The first stock we're going to look at will be a little bit slow. Okay? Because when I introduce these ideas of what is a stock chart, what really is a stock chart, I'm talking about as a hedge fund manager, as an option market maker on the NYSE ARCA SIBO floors, really what it is and why it matters. It takes a little bit of time. But then we're going to actually move quite quickly to the point where you're going to have at the end free-flowing conversation with me. You can pick any stock in the world and we'll do it together. Okay? Any stock in the world that Pattern Finder covers. It's North America. I shouldn't say any stock in the world. When we're done together, it's my belief. This is a belief. I should have underlined and italicized belief. It is my belief that you will never look at a stock chart the same. It's a belief. It doesn't mean it will be the case. Right? Some of you will say, no, I'm not looking at charts any differently. I believe you will never look at a stock chart the same. I think you will find enormously more information inside of a chart than you previously did. It'll be the same chart. It'll be the same chart. not recreating a chart for you. But because you will never look at a stock chart the same, you'll find enormously more information inside of it than previous. And the whole point of that, again, that's kind of the what. Well, why? You will be armed with tools and knowledge that will forever improve your trading. That's my belief. Just because I believe it doesn't mean it's necessarily true, but I want you to know what I believe before I start. Because if any of these bullet points that I've said don't interest you, then I would really rather you enjoy your Tuesday night. I honor your time. It is my privilege to have your attention for ever so short a period of time. And if this is as much of the time you want to give, I really respect that. Okay. There are 3 pattern types and 2 trade discovery engines in Pattern Finder. Okay, but we'll get to that. And that's it. Now I'm going to cover it. So that was the end of the slideshow. I hope I fulfilled my promise of not overwhelming you with a long slideshow. So now I'm going to move Pattern Finder to the share screen. I'm going to just make sure that's actually working. It is. And I will pull up my script. I highly recommend that you guys maximize your screen. This is going to start to get fairly detailed. This will be a bit interactive. There will be a poll pretty soon, actually in about 2 minutes. All right, so this is a stock chart, right? And what is it? On its own, it reflects all of the known information about a company. I want you to think about that for a second. Just these candles. It's all of its earnings, misses and beats, analyst upgrades and downgrades, the news, good and bad, the macroeconomic environment, expectations about the Federal Reserve, expectations about the dollar, good or bad. Every rumor, every executive change, every product launch, it's all here. It's all here. I'm going to turn my tooltip off. It's all here. That's what this is. Every bit of that is reflected in these bars that we call a stock chart. And because of this reality, a stock chart in the short to medium term, I don't believe it is in the long term, but in the short to medium term is in fact a chart of psychology. And now through a poll, I'm going to prove it to myself. I'm really going to have you prove it to yourself. It's already been proven to me. Okay, but before I even put the poll on the screen, and the second a poll goes on the screen, listening goes down, reading goes up. We can't really listen and read at the same time. I would like you in your own minds right now, before the poll goes up, to think of your favorite stock, okay? Whatever that is. Perhaps it's the one you've the largest position in or the one you've been the most successful with. Just hold that stock in your mind, but have it be something that you've traded recently. I don't want to know, like, don't think about a stock 3 years ago that made you $7 million. I mean, recently. Okay. I'm going to ask you in a few seconds through the poll, without looking at a chart. No one is allowed to pull up a chart. Is there a price or a set of prices, however you think of the world, one price or set of prices, that you think are important in the short term? And I'm using important in the very colloquial sense. What I mean is that a friend comes up to you, and let's say your favorite stock is ABC. A friend comes up to you and says, hey, I was thinking about getting into ABC. Like, what's a good price, or, you know, with the prices I should know about, right? So I mean strictly from memory. Do you know this price? Without looking at a chart, and it'll be a yes or no question. All right, I'm going to go to the polls, and I'm going to start. Okay, go ahead. The question is, if someone just came up to you about your favorite stock, a stock you trade a lot, and they just, could you name a few prices that you think are key points? Hopefully the poll is working. Maybe I have to stop screen sharing. Okay, there we go. Here they come. Yeah, could someone come up to you and say, hey, you trade Apple. Hey, what's like a crucial level for me to know? I don't know. Okay, keep voting. All right. Oh, no, I closed the poll. Oh, I can make it max. Let me reopen. Make it max. Okay. So you can see how the results are coming in. Right? A little more than half of you, right? So I'll close it. Okay. And I'll go back hypothetically to the screen share. All right. So you guys saw that, right? About half. So I didn't present you with a future narrative. I didn't say imagine inflation is lower than expected, or the Fed is doing something, or earnings are good or bad, or news is good or bad. I asked you strictly from memory, with no hypothetical news, if there was a price in your memory, not using a chart, that you think is important. That was an individual, I'm talking to you individually, about an individual stock, which you didn't even name. And the answer in general was about half of you. It's generally a little bit more than half. Usually you let it run long enough, it's like 60-40. Okay. So what we see here from that poll, from the fact that it's committed to memory, prices are committed to memory for no reason. Just it's a natural part of what's happening in your mind, right? This thing, this chart, is the psychology of market participants expressed as prices. And it's moved by buying or selling. Okay. It's psychology because I gave you no narrative, yet you could tell me or your friend prices. A good price, bad price. Right. So that was the first thing I promised I would cover. But now I have to deliver the more important part, which is why does it matter that a chart is psychology? And I remember I said the two things are different. You can know what something is and it have no impact on your life, or in this case, your trading. But this is a stock chart. And it does matter. But just because all of that information, the psychology, is in the chart, it doesn't mean we can see it without a little bit of help. I claim to you right now that in black and white, that you are looking at a trading plan. Right here, you're looking at a trading plan. Might not be apparent to you yet. Is the entry price and exit price a decision whether or not to enter the trade? That's my claim. And if my claim is correct, then I've provided the why it matters to couple with what it is. And that's where Pattern Finder comes in. Let's begin. This is a 10-year stock chart of JP Morgan using weekly candles. You could do monthly if you wanted, it doesn't really matter. Okay, switch back and forth. I say a trading plan is here, and it's entirely driven by all of the people in the market that their important price, right? That more than half of you said you had an important price, that they know it, like we just did together. And if you study charts enough and ask enough people about their special prices, what you learn is that the prices repeat. That is, what one person says, many, many other people say. And further, it's actually right in front of us. Those special prices, the ones we incidentally commit to memory, are prices where the stock reverses its direction. The name that we give it as traders that we give to these prices is usually called support or resistance, but it's actually a reversal, right? What is support? Support is where a price was once going down, it hits a price, and then it goes up again. It's a reversal. And further, it repeats again and again at that price. And because of its repetition, more and more people recognize that price as their important price. Say, oh, I know that level. And there are many of them on this chart. My question to you is, do you see any of them? Do you see any of them? Here, I'll cheat for you. I'll draw one in. Nice and easy. Here's an obvious low. Oops. Right. Looks like support, support, major support. That's just an example. That was an easy one. That's a sort of a semi-obvious low. Do you see the rest? Do you see the rest of everyone else's important prices when someone asks them what they think about JP Morgan? Do you see where volume accelerates at a price and the direction changes? Just stare at this chart for a second, because what I'm about to show you is going to be, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Okay. So now we're going to turn to the first of the three patterns from Pattern Finder. It's the explicit identification of these local highs and lows, or if you prefer, local resistance and support. Okay. Here we go. Now it's obvious, right? So we got this one right. That was easy. I'll delete it. Just look here at the 105 area. Top, 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 top. Blows through it on a gap, and what do you know? Support and support. Just as one example. Right? You say, well, how many people that trade JP Morgan, if I were to ask them that is their important price 105, this is the 105 level. We can actually answer that by taking all of the volume on the days where it acted as support or resistance, take the volume and multiply it by price, and you'll get that. Billions of dollars traded using $105 as a special price. It's obvious, right? It's obvious. But what if we don't have Pattern Finder? It's not so obvious. Here, I'll turn on prices. That helps a little bit. These are local highs and lows. Does that help? It helps a little, but not enough. I'm going to turn off the prices, turn back on horizontals. These reversal points, those horizontal lines, they're great, but they're not enough. They're not enough. And why is that? I would say they're necessary, but not sufficient. It's because after all, stock prices don't trade sideways all the time. They trade in trends. Let's say higher highs and higher lows or vice versa, right? They trade in channels. The next layer of Pattern Finder is to algorithmically choose these reversal points, right? All these guys, all these prices, which have acted in a manner that has created a trend. Okay. So we'll go to here, we'll go down from here and we'll turn on trend lines. There you go. Connecting these support lines, these congestion lines, right? So we see a series of higher highs. This is a 10-year chart. Most things after 10 years of a bull market look good. So we have higher lows and higher highs. This red line, sometimes you'll hear people call it trend support. I call it higher lows. You can call it trend support. That's what it is. This green line is called trend resistance. Just some jargon. All right. I promised you that as we go through this, that we're going to start a methodology, a systematic methodology about how to create a trading plan. All right? I promised you that. And there's a sort of checklist that has to be satisfied in order to trade. Sorry. And to tell you the truth, we're looking for a reason not to trade, because there are so many good opportunities in the market when you have a platform like Pattern Finder, and I'll show you that later. That's a claim I haven't proven yet. That you actually want to reduce the number of, be able to throw things out. And the whole point is, how do you improve your trading? Win more. That's true, but how do you win more? A part of winning more is losing less. Okay? We can never eliminate losses, right? You can't eliminate all of your losses and only have wins. That's an unrealistic point of view of trading. But we can try to improve our odds, and that's what this plan or system is intended to do. And I'm about to walk through it with you. Okay. The systematic plan is actually pretty easy. We start with a long-term chart like this. If and only if the long-term chart looks good, then we will go ahead and define our initial profit zone and loss zone. We call it stops and limits. That's just preliminary. It's going to adjust as we keep going. And you say, well, what do you mean if and only if it looks good? What's good? Good means there is room to the next resistance point. There is defined support. And if we're getting long, this is the opposite if you're getting short. We'll do both tonight. If you're getting long, we want an uptrend, right? You don't fight the tape. There's no need to fight the tape. So I'm going to start this process. First of all, it's really good psychology, in my opinion, to draw in loss zones before you draw in profit zones. As a trader, recognize how much capital you have at risk. The danger is when you don't do that and you can go bankrupt. So let's draw in a little loss zone first. Here's the stock. For me, on the long-term chart, just make it real easy, my loss zone would just be back to support. And let's go ahead and draw in my profit zone. Actually, before I even do that, we do see an all-time high right here. So I'm just going to draw that in for my direction. Now, my profit zone would be up to that all-time high. Does it mean JP Morgan can't go above the all-time high? No, of course it doesn't mean that. All-time highs are made to be broken. Is that where my swing trade's going to end? Yeah, that's where my swing trade's going to end. I'm not playing a runner. Okay. All right. Sorry. Trying to reach my mouse over a microphone and not make noise at the same time. Okay. All right. So we have our long-term chart. After that, we will look at the medium-term chart and adjust our profit and loss zones. And if that looks good, then we'll do the short-term. And finally, if the short-term looks good also, then if and only if RSI also looks good and the profit zone is larger than the loss zone, we'll make the trade. Okay. The long-term chart passes. The gain zone, the profit zone is larger than the loss zone. It's in an uptrend, higher lows, higher highs. Pretty well defined to me. Let's go to the medium-term chart and we'll go to a daily. You'll notice that our shapes, these shapes here, in Pattern Finder are actually intelligent. They scale with the charts. I think it's proper trading approach. I think I told you to draw in loss zones first. It reinforces how to think about a trade. Notice that these just scale with the chart. Okay. So what do we got here? I'm going to turn on the third type of pattern. Okay. And this is cups with handle, a cup with a handle, a cup, an ascending base, a flat base, a consolidation, or a double bottom. Turn them all on. And here we see we've got back-to-back double bottoms, which are generally resistance. Right? And I'm going to talk about what's peeking over here on the left-hand side in a second. When I look at this chart, I'm now making an adjustment. I would probably bring my profit zone from that all-time high down to this congestion point. And why did I choose this congestion point? Because it's where back-to-back double bottoms topped. See that? 1, 2, 3 with the 4 bottoms, right? That's my profit zone. Right? And all of a sudden, we're seeing more psychology that to the naked eye is nearly impossible to identify. Not 1, but 2 double bottoms. And when they end, they tend to become resistance. So reduced my profit zone. But there's something else I want to do. Let's zoom out a little bit, but I'm just going to use my mouse wheel. There's something going on over here that's peeking out. That's called an ascending base. Okay. An ascending base is a fancy way of saying higher lows consecutively in a certain period of time. You'll notice that after an ascending base, if it breaks through, it tends to be catastrophic. Here, it broke through the ascending base, and here it broke through the ascending base. I'm actually going to tighten up my loss zone. I don't want to hold it lower than the top of the ascending base, right? I'm cool. So I've adjusted my profit and loss zones, right? I've reduced my profit zone. I've reduced my loss zone. I'm ingesting all of the psychology that's in the stock chart. Okay. The long-term chart worked for me. The medium chart works for me, right? Stock is in an uptrend. Profit zone is larger than the loss zone. Now it's time for the short-term chart. 18 months. Okay. You guys picking this up? All right, I'm gonna, by the way, this might seem like magic, but the bottom of my loss zone now hits another series of congestion points. So I'll tighten it a little bit more. It's not magic. It's just the psychology of a stock chart. As you zoom in further and further, you get more granularity. Right? These are what we would call investors' important prices. Finally, I'm just going to draw on the 200-day simple moving average. You can draw on any moving average you want. Well, not any moving average, but most of them. And again, magically, the 200-day moving average is right on the bottom of my loss zone, which is right on a series of congestion points. It's obviously not magic. It's psychology. And now I have my trading plan. One last thing. Let's see if anyone was paying attention. Do you guys remember my final requirement for all of this? I'll check Q&A. All right. My final requirement was that RSI was okay. So I'm going to turn on RSI, turn my tooltip on. As we hover over the final candle, you see the RSI is 65.68. You guys see that? It's right at the bottom of that box. All right, RSI of 65 is actually too high for me. So, you know, in general, I don't want to short stocks where the RSI is below 30, nor get long a stock where the RSI is above 70. Yeah, 65 is close enough. And yes, I knew this would end up in not a trade for my first stock. I wanted to help provide a trade system, but not an actual trade yet. Okay. The rest of this presentation is going to go faster. Hopefully, I've been successful in my endeavor to define what a stock chart is, but more importantly, why it matters what a stock chart is. And then how to create a trading plan based on what a stock chart is and why it matters. Let me go back to the 10-year chart. Just turn everything off. Clear the screen. Remember what we started with? Remember this? We said it's a stock chart, and it reflects all of the known information about a company. All of its earnings, misses and beats, analyst upgrades and downgrades, news, good or bad, macro, good or bad, rumors, executive changes, product launches. It's all here. Every bit of it is reflected in these bars that we call a stock chart. And because of that reality, a stock chart in the short to medium term is in fact a chart of psychology. And then we saw how psychology can produce profits in a trading plan. Right? I'm going to pull up one image. Right? Remember, we started with a blank chart. We ended up with a full-blown trading plan. Never went anywhere other than the chart, other than a stock chart. All right, now it's time to pick up the pace. We started this journey with me self-selecting a stock, and that's great. Obviously, I'm going to choose a stock that's very easy to demonstrate and fundamentally would not have ended up in a trade, but it would have ended up not a trade after passing 3 of the 4 steps we want, right? Long-term, medium-term, short-term. By the way, what people consider long-term, medium-term, and short-term is completely up to you. For a day trader, long-term is 3 months, medium-term is 5 days, and short-term is 1 day. I don't care what your time frames are. That's personal. Long, medium, short. Whatever those are to you, fine with me. Weekly bars, monthly bars, minute bars, whatever. So we started with me self-selecting a bank, the largest bank in the United States, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of ideas appearing every day that we simply could not know without a machine. Right? And there are 2 ways to find these in Pattern Finder. So I've shown you the 3 pattern types. Right? Okay. And I said there are 2 trade discovery engines other than your own stock, obviously. Okay. The first engine for idea generation is going to come from pattern breakouts. Okay. So I want to look, since this is my presentation, I want to look for stocks that are through their 18-month resistance. So you remember that green line? They're through that green line today. And the 3-year. I want, as you know, as you can tell as a trader, I like agreement over time frames. So I want to look for tickers that are repeating. I actually want to sort the tickers. Scroll through it a little bit. Looking for repeats. And here's Chewy. 2 days ago, it broke through 18-month resistance and 3-year resistance. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to close out of this. Chewy hasn't been public for that long, so our long-term chart's going to have to be 3 years. Let's turn on our trends, and all of a sudden, we have exactly what Pattern Finder said we would find, that it just crossed out through resistance. And right here, we can draw in our profit and loss zones. We have a cup which is reinforced with another top, which is reinforced through another cup, which went through trend support. That's my profit zone. If I'm going to do a swing trade on this, I'm not going to play a really large push, right? Oops, put that cup back. Sorry, cup. So this is my profit zone. I should have drawn my loss zone first. You guys caught me making a mistake. My loss zone would just be down to the next congestion point, which is the bottom of a cup. The bottom of a cup does tend to act like support because it must act like support, as you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, perhaps 5 times, because otherwise the cup wouldn't have formed. Right? All right, let's go to the medium term, 18 months, and we'll just go to it daily. This is exactly what Pattern Finder said we would find. I'll move this out of the way. Stock right through resistance in the 18-month chart also. My profit and loss zones feel really good to me right now. I've got this nice basey support here from the formation of a cup that struck 5 times. The top of a cup, which intersected trending resistance and another high, another reversal, another important price, if you will. I'm keeping them the same. Let's go ahead and turn on the 50-day and 200-day moving averages. Okay, the stock with this last thrust through this congestion, which was the bottom, which was the support formed by a cup, it crossed both of those crucial moving averages. And now I have to go short term, so I got to go shorter. I got to go 9 months. All right. Here it is. I would not change my loss zones. I see that connection between the cup and another low. I feel pretty good about this. Last thing I have to check is the RSI. I'm not going to buy a stock that's overbought. I'll go to the tooltip. RSI is 59.85, so it's just about 60. Okay. I'd rather it be lower, but after all, remember what pattern we're looking for. We're looking for uptrends. We're looking for stocks breaking through trend resistance. So we're going to have stocks which have some strength in their buying, right, in the RSI. So I can't give advice, but hypothetically, this would have passed the test for me, the stock, hypothetically. Okay. I'm not actually touching Chewy, just so you guys know, because it's earnings season for me and I'm focused on other things. But this is a real-life, real-time example of using Pattern Finder to find an idea. I've obviously chosen one out of like 900 patterns, but it's fine. Then I've applied the systematic approach we use to assess a trade. And that systematic approach makes a stock chart. The stock chart turns into a trading plan. While we're here, before I go any further to the most powerful part of Pattern Finder, it's a good time to know that Pattern Finder has all of the fundamental information on a company you could ever want. It is a monster. Okay, let me clear this out, bring this back to a 3-year, turn off the moving averages just so it's not so full. Okay. Click on the snapshot, for example. You're going to get EPS history, right? You get revenue and free cash flow information, metrics. You're going to see the ratings. So these are our proprietary ratings, and we will discuss them. The overall rating, the buying and strength rating. This is a number that goes from 1 to 100. 100 are companies that have the strongest buying strength. You say, well, what is buying strength? I'll show you. EPS rating is a fundamental rating, so it has fairly weak fundamentals. And then the relative strength, 12 months versus the industry, 3 months and 3 months, versus industry, and some valuation metrics. By the way, if you like charting relative strength, you can chart basically every type of relative strength on planet Earth. 12 months and 3 months versus industry, S&P 500, Russell 3000, Russell 2000 versus sector. Okay. But that's not all we have. You see a stock, you're like, why is this moving? You can see all of the live market news. Okay. If there are patterns in the stock, which there are, you can look at them, cups and cups with handles. If you really want, this is where we're really powerful in the financial portion. If you really want to get into it, I'm talking about forward PE ratios, forward price to sales ratios, consensus price targets, right? Forward revenue growth. Analysts have it growing at 15% in 2026, for example. Right? We can look at relative strength and volume. So this is an interesting one. The average daily volume over the last 10 days for Chewy has been 3.9 million. Last 4 weeks, it's been 3.8 million. Last 3 months, it's been 4.4 million. Today, it did 4.84 million. This is a high volume day. relative to the last 10 days, 4 weeks, and 3 months. And not only that, the buy volume to sell volume was 1.2. If it was 1-to-1, that means buy volume and sell volume is the same. But the volume on up days is the same as volume on down days. It's showing a 1.2, right? That's showing fairly strong buying strength. And that's why its buying strength is at a 71. It's not 100, it's not 90. I'll show you some of those, but that's what's going on. You can look at all the holders. You'll notice that the number of holders is going down. You can see the change over the last quarter. And then, of course, we have a community. Okay, that's enough of that. Now, the most powerful part of Pattern Finder with regard to, I'll turn all this off, with regard to finding ideas is, without question, the screener. We have many pre-built screens. Many. Okay, we'll go over them. Those, if you like to look for relative strength, volume, technicals, if you like fundamentals, the companies that have high revenue growth and are free cash flow positive, or just high revenue growth and nobody cares about profits, high revenue growth, hyper revenue growth, things like that. But I want to start by building one with you. I'm going to build a screen. We're going to do this together. We're going to go from 10,000 companies to about 5 to find an idea. So let's start simple. I want to look at companies that have at least $100 million in revenue. Boom, that takes us down to 3,600 companies. Let's look at revenue growth. In the last year, I want at least 15% revenue growth. Boom, 1,649 companies. For revenue growth for this year, so what analysts are the consensus estimate, I also want that to be 15%. Not only that, I want 15% for 2023 as well in the consensus estimate. We're down to 331 companies. I also want revenue to be accelerating. And why do I want revenue to be accelerating? Because if I'm going to take a swing trade in the middle of a market that is driven by macro, I want a company that does well when rates are higher. And we know that companies that are going to do well when rates are higher are going to be defined if their revenue is actually accelerating. So I'll scroll down. And I'll say revenue acceleration over the last 3 quarters and 4 quarters. Like, well, what is that? For any metric, you can always just click on it, on the question mark. So what is revenue acceleration over the last 4 quarters? This is what it is. This metric carries a value of 1 if the stock in question has seen revenue increase consecutively for the most recent 4 quarters compared to the same quarters a year ago. So that's what it means. Remember, any metric, you can always just click it. All right, we're down to 278 companies. I do want companies which are free cash flow positive. So I'm just going to go to the free cash flow margin. I'm just saying a minimum of 0. That means they have to have some free cash flow. 131 companies. All right, some valuations. Some people are. I'm not terribly interested in microcap, so I'm going to say 500 million or larger. Okay, 125 companies. There has to be some volume minimum for me. I mean, I have to be able to trade it in at least some kind of size. So I'm going to say the average volume over the last month is at least 250,000 shares, which is not a big number. 250,000 shares is not a big number. It didn't even limit the universe. Okay. All right, now I want to go to our proprietary ratings. The buy-sell rating, I want it to be at least 80. That's 80 out of 100. So in the 80th percentile or better. You're like, okay, it's time for you to tell me what this buy-sell rating is. I'm glad you asked. It's our rating for identifying buying and selling activity in a stock over the last 50 days. Last 50 days. We use a proprietary formula which puts heavier weight on the short term to create a rank system where stocks that have heavy buy to sell volume, strong relative strength, and strong stock returns get a higher rating versus stocks that don't. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. Home offices. All right. Now I want to go to the relative strength, which is relative strength is how a stock is performed relative to a basket. So relative to the Russell 3000, we say, or relative to its industry, right? So if a stock is down 20%, but an industry is down 30%, that's good relative strength. So I'm going to go to relative strength over the last 3 months and make it at least in the 80th percentile as well. So I'm looking for strength here. There's no doubt what I'm looking for, right? And finally, I just want the stock to be up over the recent history. So I'm just going to go to the last 10 days, and I just want it to be up. So a minimum return of 0. Okay. We're down to 9 companies. 9 companies. Started out, there's about 10,000. We're down to 9. Okay. Let's save the screen. I'll call it simpler. Example 1. Not a great name. Don't name your screens this. All right. Here we are. Here's our list of companies. Now I can click on any of these and see the charts, but then I have to do this thing where I'm down here and I go up here to the chart. I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close the editor and I'm going to view this as a watch list. Right? Now I'm going to save this watch list as, whatever. Simpler test number 1. Again, give it a better name than that. All right, now I can get out of the screener and now I got my charts. Let's go with a minerals company, right? Earthstone Energy. And guys, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to do the exact same thing. Let's turn on all our patterns. This is the weekly. You can do the monthly if you like as well. We've got a cup of handle, a cup, an ascending base, all forming this crazy congestion here. So I'll draw on my loss zone. Again, I generally do not go below where an ascending base finishes. We saw that with JP Morgan. That's not my thing. And actually, the top of a cup with handle is enough for me. Thanks. So this is going to be a pretty tight trade. That's all I got. Now I'll put in my gain zone. Happy to go to that trending support, resistance. No problem there. All right. So that's our 3-month chart. Looks okay to me. Let's go to the medium term. Looks okay to me. I might even tighten my stop even more up to this trending support. All right, so stock's at 1730. It looks like I'm out at 17. At 16 if I did this trade. All right. This looks okay to me. I might let it kind of ride a little bit to this all-time high. I don't know. And then I'll go ahead and look at the short term. And here we go. The stock is well through its 18-month resistance, and it's up in this range. Right? I might even bring this down a little bit. Maybe I'm out at 1550. So there you go. That's just one example of using the screener to find a stock and to analyze a stock. Last thing you do, of course, check RSI. Use the tooltip. RSI is 61. Okay, not great, but I want it under 60. I want it under 65. All right, let's go a little faster. Let's go back to the screener. One of my favorite screens is something that we pre-built, and it's bullish heavy volume on the day. It's talking about today, and it is real time. So about 15 minutes into the trading day, we start extrapolating what the volume would be relative to its average. All right. Sorted by market cap. Here's Walmart, right? The volume today in Walmart was 4.5 times its 30-day average. Let's check it out. Same pattern. It came through. It was a complete breakdown. It bounced off this congestion line. It saved that support, came through it. I would have a crazy tight stop on this. Crazy tight stop. I really don't want to see it. If it goes back to support, there is evidence to believe that could be the end of it. But given that it was 4.5 times the daily volume, yeah, it's interesting to me. Also, Walmart is absolutely a recession play. Absolutely. I'd probably stop at the all-time high. I thought we meant profit zone. All right. Go to the 3-year. Daily. Wouldn't change much. Maybe I would take my loss zone, give it a little bit more room. Looks good to me. Definitely, I'm reinforcing that I'm getting out here. I do not want to suffer this. 18-month. Pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. And, of course, RSI. RSI is 63. That makes sense because it just popped. Yeah. Again, I would still do it, but I'd have a super tight stop. Let's go further. Another stock screen. How about we look at long-term high revenue growth? So go into fundamentals now, but with positive free cash flow. So these are probably going to be beat up tech stocks, which have showed a little strength, right? A company I'm long is CrowdStrike. Click on that. Click out of this. Here we go, guys. You know the pattern. All right, it's got a wedge. Medium term. It's just through that support. I would be super tight on a stop here. Super tight on a stop here. 18 months, same thing. RSI is not going to be a problem. RSI is, 46. All right. So I've tried to go through this relatively quickly, and to complete it within 45 minutes, I did. It's whatever hour you are, 51. But the beginning was an introduction by John. So I've done it in exactly 45 minutes. I believe I have done what I said I would do. And now I will turn off my screen sharing. Well, maybe I'll leave it on for now. I will go and see if there's Q&A. There is. Okay. I've got these in priority, and I'm going to go by the first answer. So there's, in the corner of your screen, there's where you can get Pattern Finder. If you go to this page, I'll just show you what it looks like. Okay. You're going to see two videos. One is kind of this trading plan idea and how to use the patterns. The other is the screener. You've seen a much more robust example of this. All right. Nasir, someone says, why is no level above 105 identified as an important price for JP Morgan? Let's go back to JP Morgan. Go back to maybe the 10-year. As I see it, again, Pattern Finder is machine driven. It just looks like a bunch of error to me. This would have been an important point, but it wasn't reiterated. So this high did not get back to here. Otherwise, we would have had another congestion point. But remember, congestion points must repeat. The psychology, there's only psychology if it repeats, right? If this many people see it being a bottom, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's really nothing here other than trending support. So that's why. Could you list the checklist items, loss zone, RSI? So you can watch the video that's on the sign up page, but it's long-term, medium-term, short-term, profit zones and loss zones. I want the profit zone bigger than the loss zone. Why not have a better reward to risk? And then RSI below 65 if I'm getting long, and RSI above 35 if I'm getting short. So someone says, why is 140 not a resistance point? I don't see how that would be resistance. I see it actually gapping through here and not even holding. And I see a little bit of a bobble here. If the stock comes back up to 140 and falls, maybe Pattern Finder will start identifying that as resistance, right? It's just learning. But right now it has no reason to learn that 140, that there's anything at 140. That would essentially, in my opinion, that would be a false pattern. And I think you have to be careful of those because you start to get comfort with these things and then they end up being nothing. Which is why I like to see when there's ascending base, because when it falls through there, it tends to fall through there. I'm a day trader. Can you please show some examples of this? Would help me. Thank you. Yes, certainly. So it's actually the exact same thing. You would go to, we go to 3-month, 15-minute, right? That's a 3-month chart. Then you go to the 5-day and the 1-day. One thing to keep in mind for Pattern Finder is that on the 3-month, 5-day, and 1-day charts, we don't yet have the patterns being built in. It's actually learning right now. So I don't expose the patterns until they've had a proper exposure. So it's coming very soon, but you would use it the exact same way. It's actually the same methodology, right? Long term would be 3 months, intermediate term would be 5 days, short term would be 1 day. You probably want to go by the minute bars on the 1 day, right? And so we would start drawing in the patterns, right? The congestion points, the trends, any cups and any of these, right? So right now, if you're a day trader, those aren't quite drawn in yet. So you'd have to do it yourself, but it's obviously coming. You can see this crazy minute volume at the end of the day. If you ever wonder why option market makers mark at the end of the day, this is why. You're looking for one chart? Yeah, so I think I answered that, Henry. So you can look at any of these time frames and any of these candles. Obviously, you can't do a minute candle on a 10-year chart. That would be like infinity candles. But for anything that's reasonable, you can just switch through it. I think that this process systematic approach forces one to be more selective and therefore reduce the constant problem of overtrading, in my opinion. That's right. This prevents overtrading. If you trade 20 times and you have 10 losses and 10 wins, let's hope your wins are larger than your losses. If your profit zones are larger than your loss zones, and that should be on average the case, if you're reducing some of the bad trades and maybe you'll have 10 wins and 8 losses, all of a sudden you turn a not very good track record into something that you can live on, something that can help pay the bills, right? Pattern Finder will find you the ideas, but it will also put a wrapper around it, right? You have to have a trading plan. For those of you that have watched me on my options trading webinar, I had a webinar on how to speculate with options. And I was, full of piss and vinegar and really, tongue wagging. And then at the end, I just said it, right? I showed a whole plan. A trading plan is a very long plan. For me, it can be up to 3 or 4 pages, right? With options, it's a little harder with options. I love a chart because you can just do it on the chart. But I said, and please, forgive my, my grotesque language, but I think it's required when it comes to trading because it'll jolt you. And you'll be like, I remember when that guy said that. When it comes to a trading plan, write it the fuck down. Don't pretend that you have a trading plan. If you're doing it on a chart, fine, print out the chart. But if you're not doing that, write it down. Write it down. You will lose money if you today are making decisions for you today. You will lose less money or even make money if you yesterday is making decisions for you today. Because you today is in the heat of psychology. You're getting stuck in this. Don't do that. Be better than that. Can this work for futures like oil or ES? We don't have futures yet. You could use USO, for example, so any proxy, but we don't have futures yet. Someone wants to see SPX. So SPY. We have SPX, but SPY is just less data on a short time frame. Just a 3-month. We don't have to look at daily. Let's look at 15-minute candles. So this is what I would do. I don't want to do a color that connotates good or bad. So, yeah. Right. Help away. Oh man, we have a bug. Shit. All right. Well, it was supposed to draw a line. I'll draw it here. Should show up on the 3-month. Right. All right. So, and I want to go to. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times in 3 months that this 370 level, first it acted as support, and of course what happens with support after it gets crossed, it acts as resistance. It acts as resistance, and once it gets crossed, it acts as support. So that's why I would look there. It's going to be way easier once we get our patterns actually drawn in, but do you see where I am right here? This would be another one. So Pattern Finder will do this for you. We shouldn't be doing it by hand. Unfortunately, on the very short-term charts, I'm not going to publish something that I don't feel comfortable with, and it's coming very soon, certainly by the end of the year, but not quite yet. But it would be the exact same process, whether you're on a minute bar or a 10-year monthly. It's all the same. It's all the same. Someone asks if the purchase of CML Pattern Finder includes entrance to Simpler Trading Room each day. It doesn't, and I'll let Simpler Trading talk about what it does and doesn't do. How about identifying pullbacks to longer-term support? Yeah, so you can definitely look. So most people, when they're looking at demonstrations, like to see stocks that are going up, not because they only think stocks go up, but it's just easier to contemplate. But you can look for, let's go to the Pattern Finder. I mean, for example, forget resistance. How about breakdowns, right? So companies that are through support on the 3-year and the 18-month, we're looking for symbols that repeat. It's going to be hard to find. Here, GTLS, a producer manufacturer. So, well, When did this happen? It happened 4 days ago. So yeah, sorry. You're welcome. So let's find one that's a little bit more recent than, 4 days ago. Here. All right. Looks like NWL just had a breakdown. There we go. All right, so this is where you have to be kind of an advanced trader, right? What do you see here? I'll zoom in. I'll really zoom in. So what do you see here, right? Is this through support? Is this going to bounce off support? It's gone through support. It recaptured it. It held here. Let me back it out. That support goes back to the COVID low. If you're the kind of swing trader that looks for the guys that are kind of recovering back to support, then there's a pretty clear profit zone. Actually, you might even go to the bottom of the start of an ascending base. But, it failed support, and I'm not sure it's going to hold it. So, and what is this company? Newell Brands. Well, look at the ratings. Look at the buying strength. It's from 0 to 100. It's an 8. It's basically one of the weakest. You could almost say it has very strong selling volume. Some people would say, like RSI, some people would say if something has strong enough selling volume that it gets exhausted and there just has to be a recovery. We might be seeing that in the S&P 500 right now, for all we know. All right, so you could make that argument. That is a contrarian point of view. Look at its relative to its industry. In the last 3 months, this stock is the single worst performer in the producer manufacturing industry. If you believe it's gonna, you believe it can't get worse, then that would be a trade. So if for more advanced traders, look, you can definitely look for contrarian viewpoints. It's up to you. I'm not going to comment on how to do that because it's slightly more complicated than I can do in 50 minutes, but yes, I do it. Do you have a squeeze function? We don't have the squeeze yet. We will eventually add the squeeze and it'll be in our technical indicators, like down here. So just pretend the RSI was the squeeze chart. So we don't have it yet. It'll just be down here. We have it in Trade Machine, so there's no reason we can't get it into Pattern Finder. Does your software do futures and Forex? Not yet, no. Can you do pattern breakouts on custom watch lists? Yes, absolutely. So let's say you have your own watch list. Let's say this is your watch list. We have coming, so it's in, I could show you in development. Maybe I'll show you development. There's a button here which says send to watch list, send to screener. It takes this list and sends it into a screener, and then you can work through your specific watch list and start sorting it by RS or volume or revenue growth. So yes, in fact, I'm going to show you something. Okay, no one else has seen this. Something that may get you excited. You're gonna notice something here. You see this tab, this yellow tab? Yeah, that's not in production right now. It's the Today tab. It's telling you things that have broken out today, whether it's breakouts, bullish volume, bearish volume, or strong RS. Okay, that's not in yet. It's coming this week. You're the first human beings to see it, other than us internally, but that's coming. The other thing that we will have is sending a watch list into a screener. Okay, that's coming very soon. But nobody showed you that. What is the cancellation policy? Yeah, you cancel whenever you want. So you would, this is your account tab. All right, I'll just open mine. Don't send me an email. Okay. Open in a new tab. Okay. Well, it's because I'm an admin. Let me see what happened. Okay, go to my account. And then if you want out, then you would go here, you go to your subscription and you just click cancel. It's month to month, however you like. It could not be easier to cancel our software. We're the opposite of those companies that force you. Are there any other fees? Is this price locked in forever? Is software web-based or loaded to your PC? This is web-based. There are no other fees. There's not like, no, it's $48 a month, $48 a month, $48 a month. That's what it is. And it's all web-based. It's a website, patternfinder.cmlviz.com. On what trend line do your trend lines and patterns do not draw? On what? Sorry. And also pattern breakout by sector or industry components. Yeah, absolutely. So let's say we want to do something. So we're going to be having a very specific sector and industry every day, a sector and industry strength day, so you can see today what's going on. But let's say you just wanted to find strong sectors right now, because you're like, hey, like I said, why not trade in strength if you're getting long? So let's create a stock screen. Let's edit the one we were working with. We don't have to be quite so hard on it here. Okay. All right. So we're here, but now I want to go to company, and I want the sector to be in there. Actually, the industry. I'll do both. You can just click all values. You're not actually filtering. It's just your results are going to show that. And let me take. Oh, I don't want this. Okay. 234 companies. Okay, so which companies meet this? Just sort it by sector, and you're just going to start seeing, right? Commercial services, consumer durables, consumer services. You're going to get to minerals. Yeah. You're going to oil and gas production, integrated oil. Let's show more than 50 on a page. Let's show 200 on a page. Look at this. Ready? Energy, 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 energy. And by the way, banks, finance, 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 finance. So where is their strength? Finance and energy. So I would just come down here. Instead of doing that, I would select the sectors. Finance and energy. And now I've got a super strong list of 68 companies, which I'm guessing most of these charts look really, really good, right? So yeah, here's EOG, right? Just, that was pretty easy. All right, so yes, you can definitely search for strength. If we sign up for your platform, will all updates be included? Yeah, we actually just launched a month ago. The number of updates you're going to get is going to be profound. In fact, just so you know, this pattern breakouts tab, which I showed like, yeah, it's trivial. Like, no, that came out last week. So everything's coming. For example, you saw that the Today tab is coming very soon. You just saw it in production. I mean, in development. Your thoughts on using MACD to determine if stock risk is increasing or decreasing. I don't love MACD, but I do know people who make a lot of money using it. So this is where it's very personal. I don't use it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. And we have MACD. So it's really personal. I'm not a great technician. So moving averages, sure, like no problem. And RSI, sure. But other than that, I'm more of a chartist than a technician. Just to confirm, the auto patterns and trend lines are to be released shortly to work with the lower time frames for day trading. That's right. So for now, does it make sense to review the lines and patterns on the higher time frames and use those to guide lower time frame decisions, or does that not work? I think it does. So let's just do the SPY together without the ability to do short time frames. But we can go down to 9 months. We don't need it to be weekly, certainly. Can I do minutes? Hourly at least, right? Oh, yeah. Right. Anything less than a day and the patterns go away, right? Because they haven't learned enough yet. Yeah, so like, I don't think anyone doesn't know the 410 area. Like, I don't know how many more times it can be repeated, but yes, we've identified the 410 area and also the 370 area. So let's go to a 3 month, right? So here's 410. Oh, we don't want it to be daily. Let's go to 15-minute bars, right? So here's the 410 area. Not a surprise. I'll actually draw it in. Oh, such a bug. Kills me. All right. Now I will go to the 3 month. All right, we're not allowing drawing tools either here because we don't feel confident with our patterns. We should. So there would be a line there and then the 370. And I'm getting those levels from the longer term charts. You can see, like, look at that here, here. So support, support, which was resistance, which was resistance, which was resistance. So yes, I think you can. Having said that, if you're a day trader, eventually you're going to want us to, to have it for the days. So that's on us and we have to do it. I would say that's coming out in the next, let's say, month to 2 months. The most immediate stuff is what I showed you. There's a Today tab coming out and moving your watch list into the screener. So just your own companies, you put them in the screener, stuff like that's coming. Demonstrate how to find short candidates. Sure, yeah, absolutely. First of all, we have a screen. So I'll go here. So this is bearish heavy volume on the day. Let's look for, so unfortunately, I'm going to pick a tech company. Hope I'm not offending anyone. Yeah, I mean, it just collapsed off of resistance. Oh, it's a short. Its stock hasn't been around that long. Let's go for longer. Chart's been long. I'm going to send this actually to a watch list. Just easier than going back and forth. All right. Okay, here's a bearish candidate. Had a major turn. Could, I'm going to say probabilities are, by the way, this is where the bottom of a double bottom, if it crests below that, I would think it's going to the bottom of the cup. I don't know, odds. That bottom of the cup is also the top of a double bottom. So there's going to be a lot of support here, but it could act as a magnet. I don't think I have a lot more to say about this. This is the bottom of a cup. That's, this stock could be headed to 19. I don't know what the news is, so I have to sneeze, so I'm going to mute myself for a second. Sorry. Okay, no sneeze yet. It'll catch me by surprise. Let me save this watch list as. Well, you can spell the word possible, right? Let me go and see what's going on here. This feels like earnings. Okay, this was earnings, so buyer beware. I wouldn't be long. How about that? Let's go back to the watch list. The simpler shorts. Yeah, so this is how I would do it. I would go through that one. And by the way, the other screen I showed you that was kind of step-by-step got us 9 companies, just reverse what I showed you. Instead of, this is what the screen was. I think I saved it for this webinar. Yeah, simpler one, exactly. So this is what the screen was. Let me close the watch list. That's super annoying. Okay, so instead of buy sell rating 80 to 100, I'm going to click buy sell rating. I'm saying, no, not 80 to 100, 0 to 20. And not an RS 0 to 80. No, I mean 80 to 100, 0 to 20. You can always find weakness, right? It's not hard. And instead of the stock price being up in the last 10 days, no, I want it to have been down in the last 10 days. All right, now I got 26 companies with the same screen, right? I just reversed, right? So that's how you would do it. So finding, by the way, now is I don't want to get too advanced, but now is an ideal time to be pair trading. Like get long a utility and get short a utility. And that's where you would use relative strength within industry. So you can screen on. So, okay, I'll show you that. Let's create a new screen. This is going to be a very simple screen. Okay. I only want to trade energy, let's say. Real simple. That's it. Maybe I want to make sure I'm, dealing with billion-dollar companies and they actually have money. The revenue is at least $100 million, just something easy. Okay, now I go to my results down here, blah, 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 close the editor. And now I would sort, I need to add, let me add buying and selling volume. I just want to add the number. I don't want to actually do anything with it. So I'll just click on it. Now it's there. And I'll go to relative strength. Within the industry in particular, I want all of these values. I'll just click it. Okay, now I want to see the results. Okay, sort by the buying and selling. Okay, so here are some short candidates, right? And then in reverse, here are some long candidates. That's a great pair trade, I think, right? All right. Is this separate from Trade Machine? Yes, it is separate from Trade Machine, but if you're a Trade Machine member, email support because you get it for only $11. And why do Trade Machine members get it for only $11? Because you're already paying $129 a month. We're not trying to fleece you. Is this a separate website to work from once we sign up, or is it a plug-in from other sites? Oh no, this is a separate website. It's patternfinder.cmlviz.com. It's its own website. Is Pattern Finder included in, someone asked, when do you plan to have futures and Forex? Not for a while. So futures and Forex cost a lot of money and it's per user, but there's also a getting started fee. So we would have to have a few thousand people saying, okay, I'm ready. Right. What kind of education comes with it? So once or twice a week, I publish a Substack. It goes to users, I'm not going to show you. It goes to users. And then we have the help tab, which kind of helps you get through what's going on. like how do I use Pattern Finder and what are the requirements and a reference guide. But mostly what you want is the community. So I just click community, I signed in, I agree. Right. So here's where people are posting their trades, and all of a sudden you can ask people questions like, hey, what's going on? What do you think about it? Here I talked about semiconductors. Oh, that's what I wanted to show you. Right. Sorry. It's one thing to say that I did a good trade and you're like, totally, dude, I really believe you. So I posted this on November 11th. I said, here come the semis. So I used the exact same thing we did today, guys. I looked for breaking through resistance over 18 months and 3 years, right? So through that green line. Then I looked at the medium-term chart. It was through it as expected. The longer-term chart, it was through it as expected. SOX was at 378. Big upturn, right? So these things do work, right? There's no such thing as 100%, but I'm sharing on Twitter like, hey, look at this. Okay. When will options be coming? Oh, very, very soon. Yeah. So this is just going to be a real-time options chain. We have it in Trade Machine. We just got to basically code it up for this. So this is coming soon. Yeah, you'll be able to see the real-time options chain. You won't be able to trade options, but you'll be able to see mid-market, all strikes, all expirations, calls and puts. Any patterns tools that can find stocks that are ready to make a big move, parabolic, either daily or intraday? Yeah, I mean, again, I would look for incredible buying strength. Right. So using our buying selling rating, that's kind of it. You might actually look for companies that have buying strength, but are, let's say, below the 50-day moving average. You can do all of this in the screener, right? Because once those stocks have this huge buying strength, those moving averages, this is more technical than charting, those tend to matter, right? Also, these can be those types of moves you're talking about, like they're through support. Will the pattern finder show the strongest of the near-term patterns, or only we search for? It's going to show all the patterns. You just click on them. There's no rating of strength of pattern. As you start to become familiar with charts, you start to learn certain things. I mean, just think about what a cup is. Just pretend you don't even know how it's made. There must be two tops and the stock must come down, right? So this automatically turns into resistance, right? Automatically. That's what a cup is. When it goes down a certain amount, it's called a handle. If it comes back up, then that's a bullish thing, but it has to come back up. Same thing with like ascending bases. Okay, I think I have just answered all of the questions. So for those of you, yeah, there's that webinar special right there. It will look, I think, I'm going to guess Simpler Trading's here. On the fly. I was right. Okay. So it's simplertrading.com/CML or the thing you have there. Yeah, let me stop sharing the screen and just turn my camera back on just so I can bid you adieu. Okay. Hi. Just wanted to thank you for taking the time tonight to spend with me. I hope that I delivered what I said I was going to deliver, which was what a stock chart is really in the short and medium term. I don't think that applies to the long term. Why it matters what it is. How do you make money on that? Why are you telling me that? A systematic trading plan that you could use for every stock. You don't have to use it for every stock. There are many other systems to trading. There's not just my system. That is completely absurd if someone tells you there's only one system. But if you needed a system and you wanted to start with a system, you got a system, right? Long-term, medium-term, short-term, make sure the profit zone is larger than the loss zone, and RSI is okay. Not that complicated. The chart becomes your trading plan. Print it out. Piece of paper. Right? You don't make decisions today for today. You make decisions today for tomorrow. And that's really it. I hope I've honored your time, and it's been a privilege to to speak with you. And that's all I got, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And I hope all of your trades go particularly well. All right. Bye, guys.